Tonight, we spoke about overcoming the seeming impossible. And in the first part, we spoke about positivity. Believe it, it's going to happen. Envision it, smell it, taste it, touch it, think it, and how that rewiring of your mind really creates the reality. If you enjoyed, drop a like and share with someone who can benefit. Thank you. So tonight is my father's yahrzeit. Tonight, tomorrow, for many years. My son, who's named after him, is turning 28. So it's been many years. It's always special on a yahrzeit to dedicate something like a Torah study or something in honor of the elevation of the soul of the one who's departed, it's his yahrzeit, the anniversary of his passing. So I want to dedicate this class to my father's ascent. We know that every day the souls ascend, just as we pray 3 times a day, the souls parallel to that 3 times a day have an ascent. But on their yahrzeit, on the anniversary of their passing, is this humongous jump, like the biggest leap of the year happens on their yahrzeit. And that's why anything a person can do to help that jump is very appreciated on high, because above, it's a soul, it's a completely godly experience, and they can't do anything, so to speak, for themselves. For that, you need man below in this world. So we can do, and by doing, we can help the ones that are above. So this class tonight should help the elevation of my father's soul that is happening now. I'm going to say one brief story about my father that I'm sure I've shared before. I'm just thinking of it as an appropriate story to share. To, again, thoughts from the story also should help the elevation of his soul. So my father was young. His parents come to America from Russia, and as was the fate of most Jews of that generation, it was very hard for them to maintain their Judaism, their religious Judaism in America. Obviously, they had been that way when they were in Europe, but in America it was very, very hard to maintain. You had to work on Shabbos. They didn't see other options. And the older people kept it to a certain degree. My grandparents' parents did, but already the next generation, my grandparents' generation, that were the younger ones that came, the children or the younger ones, they unfortunately were sacrifices of America. So when my father was born and he was growing up, his parents, we call them traditional, but they weren't leading a religious life. But his grandmother, his father's mother, who I'm named after, was living in their apartment, and she was religious, as so to speak, religious as she was, without, obviously the education people have today, but she was religious enough that every Shabbos she wasn't working anymore, so she wanted to go to shul. She wanted to go to synagogue, and her young grandson, my father, would accompany her. So every week he would go to shul, he would go to synagogue, religious synagogue, and he was probably the only one there under like age, 75. So all the older men in the synagogue, they all took him under their wing, and they lit up his soul, inspired him, and made him desire to be observant as they were. So he's coming home and he decided he's observant, whatever, his mother would do anything for him. So I'm sure whatever his requests were in terms of kosher in the house, whatever, she probably was anyway, keeping kosher to a certain degree. I'm sure she was. And maybe she upgraded it a bit, and okay, whatever he was doing to be religious. And he started saying, as the men were telling him, he wants to learn. He wants to go away, because in those days there was no religious day school in Chicago. It was Chicago, but the days prior to religious day schools, there was no religious day schools in Chicago. So he wanted to go away to the East Coast to learn in a religious Jewish school. And his parents are, no way, they're not going to send their young son, across the country. It wasn't like today. not with phone communication, not with transportation. So sending him away would have been what? I won't ever see you again. Absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely not. So he was begging and pleading and used to getting his way with his mother, but absolutely not. She was definitely not going to send him away to a religious school, or for that matter, for any other reason. Anyway, so God intervened. And in his school, I don't know what grade this was, 5th grade, 6th grade. Don't remember, they had cooking class. And in those days, whatever you cook, part of the cooking class requirements were you had to eat the food. And my father at this point was committed to keeping kosher, and he refused to eat the food. And the principal called down his parents to the office. What's going on? Your son's refusing to eat the food. And his immigrant parents, being called to the principal's office, got very, very scared. What does this mean? Already the, Russian flavors, their fears. So they told him, you know what? Yeah, you fine. You could go away. We'll let you go and learn in yeshiva because we don't want to get in trouble with the principal again. So in that merit, my father was able to travel east and go and study for many, 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 many years in yeshiva, becoming ultimately a rabbi himself. I just thought it was interesting because sometimes things happen in life that seem like bad, but of course they're God, which means they're not bad. And here I thought, why does the cooking have to make you eat the food? Why did the teacher have to make a big deal of it? Why did the principal have to make a big deal of it? All these things are like bad. That's just not good. Because of all these things, you'll be able to go learn in yeshiva. So, so too with everything in life, it's all coming from God. And however we process it, we keep that long vision and say, wait, this is coming from God. There's a reason he's doing it. It's a good reason. And keep moving in that direction. Things might unfold in a way that surprises us. So that is a little story in the life of my father. And again, it should bring an elevation to his soul, as should all of our learning tonight. Okay, so we said that we were going to speak today about being successful when it seems like the odds are against you, or sometimes when you feel it's just not possible. Some situations seem like you can't find your soulmate, divorce, children, marriage, finances, health. It relates to everything. We all have so many different things in our life that just are really not in our hands, or if they are, we just don't seem to be able to do them anyway. So a lot of times we're in those situations where we feel it's just not possible for this to turn out okay. It's just not possible for this to turn out good. Impossible. There's no way that can happen. But we know that possible, impossible, those words aren't very relevant when we're talking about God. And the question is merely, what does my work have to be? What do I need to do when I'm in this seemingly impossible situation, when I'm in a situation where I feel like I don't see any way that it's going to work out. I can't script any way that it's going to work out. Everywhere I'm looking, it seems like it's not going to work out. It's not going to be good. What should I do as someone that has a relationship with God to take these impossibly difficult, hard situations and see the good, see God's good, see it turn out with an outcome I want as versus what I'm going through right now? So I said I was giving 8 different things, 8 points that I'd like you and me and you to work on in terms of how we can turn around impossible to possible. So the first point that I think is very foundational, whatever your situation is, we all have different situations, but we all have situations. Some people have bigger situations. Some people have more manageable situations. Some people have a few small situations, and some people have huge overarching situations. But whatever the situation is, with children, with health, with finances, with marriage, with any of the myriads of the things we grapple with in our careers, in our housing, in any of these things, the first foundational idea is to know, to believe, to feel it's going to happen. A big blockage to success is knowing it's not going to happen. And, when we look at things, we like to be, we'll use the word realistic, cautious. We don't want to set ourselves up for disappointment, whatever the terms you use for it. So forget all that. Chuck all that out. Brainwash yourself. Cleanse your brain. Rewire your thinking. Keep pumping yourself with the most incredibly positive message. This child is going to be terrific. My soulmate, I'm finding him now. My health situation's so resolved, don't even need to go to doctors. The more I think it and say it and act it, the more it changes the inner wiring of my brain, the more I believe it. And that's critical for it to happen. So a huge, huge piece in making the impossible possible and making the not going to happen is our own enormous positivity. It's coming from trusting God. It's our enormous positivity about what's going to be. So take an area of your life. If you have one of those, like, as we're saying, impossible situations, you could pick that one. If, thank God, you don't have any situation you would call impossible, take a regular area. It's okay. We all have areas. And form a positive message regarding that issue. Let's all try to do that now. Let's think of some area in our life. Could be one of these impossibles, or if you can't think of an impossible right now, that's great. But think of something and then form a really positive message. A really beautiful message about that specific, seemingly totally stuck, impossible, can never be solved situation. Don't limit yourself to reality. Don't worry about reality. Just form a beautiful, positive message, a beautiful, positive vision. Form something very, very happy and totally upbeat and totally unrealistically great about that thing. When you formed one, you can raise your virtual hand, so we'll know you're on board.
Cyril, I want to share something, if I may.
Sure.
Stop me if I'm going too much in details, but I will try. Just before this call, I'm talking to one of my daughters, and I'm thinking about how to arrange for Rosh Hashanah, where we're going to be. I live in California. Both children live on East Coast, and I don't know how to make it perfect. And I give them ideas. One daughter talk to another daughter, and it's like whatever I give ideas, it's like, Mom, you're too idealistic. You want everything together, but it's not possible. And just before I spoke, right here, right now, just before your class, one of the daughters said, Mom, you're too naive. Like, why? These people are not gonna make it nice, and these people will be like everything which you tell me, something is not gonna be positive. And I said, so what would you advise me? Okay, you're me. Tell me, what advice would you give for me? Mom, just stay where you are. Go to shul where you go, and just be happy. Don't try to connect everybody together. I said, but remember how we did. I said, it was a decade ago. I said, it's not decade. It may be like 5 years, 7 years ago, not until before we all went to college and new work and etc. And she says something to me now. I don't remember the word that she used, but something like, yes, I'm idealistic. I'm not realistic. Like everything and then you come here and you talk about, and I said, I could not say, that's what I am. I wouldn't reach anything if I would not think about positive.
Absolutely. For all of us.
So
this is what God wanted you to hear. So you have your hand raised. And Rivka has her
Yes.
hand raised, and I have my hand raised. Anyone else? It's not so hard. And Manucha, to think of a positive, maybe it's hard to think of a situation. I don't know. You don't have a big situation. Think of something in your life, like Miriam is saying, that all her kids should be together for the holidays, you know? Something she wants and doesn't seem possible. It doesn't have to be the biggest crisis in her life. It's on the horizon now. But think of something and then create a really positive thought or phrase or vision, like she's just imagining her and her daughters lighting the candles together, sitting in the synagogue together, sitting in the right around the table together, dipping their apple in their honey. Whatever it is, you know, whatever your situation is, just create a thought, a vision, the words of like, wow, that enormous, unbelievable success story. Unrealistic success story. Why would it work out that way? Success story. Don't worry about it. Just really, really, really go for that really positive, just total, you know, whatever, you know, as far as you want to go. Now, once you have that message, so myself and Miriam and Riska and Manucha have it, and hopefully others are going to as well. You got to keep repeating that message to yourself, or that vision to yourself, that energy, that feeling to yourself all day long. It will help you have the optimism, the positivity. Optimism and positivity are the hallmarks of successful people. Okay? People are not successful if they're realistic and small-minded. We've got to be very optimistic, very positive, very huge thinking in everything, especially in those things we really want that don't seem like they're happening. So what are the challenges to this? I think the biggest challenge to this is remembering to stay focused, especially if we're used to thinking a certain way. If you're used to looking at a child and feeling, oh no, what's going to become of him? If you're looking at your marriage or your health or your career, and then suddenly we're putting all this positive energy in, and it's like, whoa, that's unnatural. I don't think like that at all. So any ideas how you can overcome that like natural tendency to go in a more negative direction, in a less positive direction, a more pessimistic direction, a more uncertain direction, a more doubtful direction? Any ideas how you could keep up this great vision or thought or phrase or slogan that you're in the process of creating now, and some of us have already created? How will you get yourself to remember to think about it or feel it or envision it all day long?
One thing I would say, it's empowerment by people who think this way. If you are surrounded of people like you're talking about now, maybe tomorrow I will meet another person who will have same message to me, think about positive thing, then it keeps going on. It's like, it's empowerment. But if you are somehow surrounded by people who are pessimists, who think opposite, it's very hard. So you always have to think about, be present, I think, be present and surround yourself with people like-minded.
You are so right. And to put it in the other way, if you know there are people in your world that are more negative-minded, try not to absorb their energy, try not to have as much to do with them, because Miriam is so right. When you're in the presence of a positive, upbeat, optimistic person, it's so much more natural to go in that direction. And when you're in the presence of a lot of negative, pessimistic people, it is hard to maintain your own positive look on life. You're surrounded by all this energy going the other direction. So absolutely true. Anyone else? Any other tips? Any other ways to help yourself all day rewire your thinking to be so positive about this one issue? We're taking one issue. About this one issue, how can you be so positive about it? Again, a big challenge is remembering.